of that comes into the area that you're investing as well. Now, you probably know Bath inside out now when it comes to, you can probably spot a property with a good rent. You know how much your cleaners are going to cost. You know how often they can get them in, and you can account for it a little bit better. But as you mentioned, this is not something that's sort of like taught. I think it's with anything. It's kind of like, I was having this conversation with Christian where it's like, it's kind of like learning to drive, and it like you can learn the basics of learning to drive, but when it comes to every scenario, you can't account for it. But when it comes to cost, that's always the thing that stings you the most, isn't it? Because it's like everything can get quite tight. Talk to me about lockdown.
Yeah, so this is when my year started getting pretty downhill. So the last time I saw it was March. Yes. So literally just before, obviously, the sort of regulations came into play. And at that point, I had my second essay as well. So that was my second one in Bath. And then I'd also, that same month, secured my first HMO. So that was my HMO in Reading. So that month was sort of, I had all these sort of properties I was just taking on. So I was like, okay, this is great. I'm taking them on. And then the lockdown sort of hit. And at the time, we obviously knew about coronavirus, but we didn't know. Don't think anyone, everyone was just being oblivious to it and a bit naive and think, oh, it just won't affect us. Like, it's over in China, like, it's over that side of the world, like, which it was at that time. It hadn't spread over here yet. So we were sort of thinking, I was thinking, this is going to be fine. I'll take on these units. And then lockdown hit, and obviously the full restrictions came into place. So at this point, I obviously did what everyone did, messaged my landlords asking for rent reductions, or even rent holidays. But in the grand scheme of things, even with rent holidays, you're just pushing the problem further into the future. You're still going to have to pay that back at a later date. It's just going to be a higher rent. So that means when you are eventually making profit again 4 or 5 months down the line, you're not actually going to be making profit because you're accompanying for this increased rent. So for me, it was now, I'm sort of a few grand deep into my 2 properties in Bath, one of them a huge refurb. And my thing was, if I keep on to these properties, neither of my landlords were open to giving me a rent reduction or a rent holiday at this point. So they would just they want their money every month. And then, I mean, they were great landlords and they were both lovely people, but they had to cover their own mortgages. And in Bath, they had very high mortgages. And so they were saying, we just can't afford to. And I was already getting quite a good deal on this 2-bed. So I was like, Rob, what do I do? Do I bite the bullet and take this hit? So I'd be paying sort of $1,300 a month with all bills included on one property. I think it was just over $2,000 for the 2 in Bath for the next 3 or 4 months. And nobody knew how long it was going to be. It was going to be 3-month lockdown or 4-month lockdown. And I mean, the grand scheme of thing was probably about 3 months. And I could have ran it and had as key worker. So that was one thing. Obviously, I went through the options and business. But if you sort of have properties in Bath, you know, the Bath hospital's quite far out of Bath. So key workers is very unlikely. And also there was no parking at either of them. So I couldn't get contractors in, all that sort of stuff. So my apartments were very tourism based, which during high seasons is fantastic. But then obviously low seasons, you get hit hard. And I knew that going into it. I took that gamble going into it, but obviously I didn't know about lockdown was going to come. So yeah, I had to sort of think about cutting my losses and say, if I hold on to them, I'm going to be another $8,000 deep, probably worst case by the time we come out the other side, which means now I need to make $8,000 profit over the next few months. It's probably going to be slower coming out. So it's probably realistically going to be another year before I make that back. And then at which point I was like, I'll be at uni. So now I'm going to have 3 SAs and an HMO and my sourcing company to run during my final year of uni. So it sort of got to a point where I was like, I had to make a decision. Do I cut my losses and get rid of them, which is what I did in the end, and sort of just take the L with those ones and just switch my focus elsewhere. So that's what I did. And I had to hand back all my SAs, fully refurbed. The landlord was fucking thanking us because they got a full refurb. Probably would have cost them sort of $10,000 for free. But yeah, had to hand those back. But then on the right side, so then at which point my HMO, the day I got the keys for that, my first 2 tenants moved in the same day I got the keys.
Wow.
Which was great. A little tactic someone had told me about, everyone does it now, about posting pictures from other properties. If you're any other properties, post those pictures and just say, this isn't our property, but this is of the same quality. Yeah. So you gain sort of attention. So that's what I did, and I managed to get those first 2 tenants to move in the same day. But then that led to a whole new minefield of things because they were NHS nurses.
Oh, okay.
So then I couldn't move any new tenants in because they were at the start so open to coronavirus that nobody else wanted to move in. Yeah. So that led to a whole new sort of ball game. And then, yeah, in the end, we got through it.
Bro, I will say one thing, man. It takes a brave guy to turn around and say, you know what, look, if I continue down this path, I'm not confident that I'm going to make X amount of money until X amount of time. So even though I've worked like stupidly hard for everything that you achieve, like to be able to have the confidence to say, look, I'll give it back and I'll pick up essays at a later date.
Yeah, no,
it's a testament
hard
to you, man. Because bro, it's not easy. Like there's going to be hundreds of people watching this, hopefully thousands, man.
Millions, hopefully.
Millions. You know what I mean? That are genuinely struggling to get their first deal over the line. And then, like I said, for you to sort of get it, understand that, well, you know what, you couldn't have accounted for like coronavirus. Like you just can't call something like that, like a world pandemic. You can't factor that in. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly.
But then for you to obviously hand them back, realizing that, you know what, I'll crack on with essay back at another date. And it's not like you didn't try. You weighed up all your options as well.
No, exactly. And I think it's actually, for me, I put it down to, I mean, it's all those cliche things your mum tells you. It's all a learning curve. But at the end of the day, it actually was, because now it means that I can go off and talk to other people about essay, actually having done it. So I can now talk to people, and if down the line, if I want to get into mentoring, training, or any of that sort of stuff, sort of few years down the line, it means I have actually been there and done that, rather than just sort of, I know a lot of people sort of jumping into sort of mentoring and whatnot, and have sort of 1 or 2 units, which, I mean, if that's what I would be at if I jumped into it now, but having actually being able to experience all the different rent to rents is also really good, because you learn different things from different aspects of it. So like there's parts of the SA that I can sort of bring into my HMO.
It's crazy how like you had your SA units, and then you've still got your HMO now, so you haven't completely like given everything back and started from scratch. You're still doing your deal sourcing as well. And the fact that on your first day 2 tenants moved in.
That was jammy, to be fair. I was lucky. And then, I mean, so with my HMO, I'd accounted for 2 months given the lockdown. So at the time I'd accounted for 1 month to get it full, without a lockdown, and then in the end with the lockdown it took 3 months. It took the whole lockdown to get it full. Which wasn't too bad, because like I said, I had my first 2 tenants move in the same day I got the keys, so therefore my actual voids, the rent I was paying the landlord, was already halved. And then my next tenant was probably about a month after that, so again I didn't actually take that big a hit, and it was a fantastic deal anyway, so I really wasn't actually losing that much money on it at the time. But yeah, that was a good deal, and one to keep.
Is that the moment?